Afghanistan is currently battling against the clock. A deadly earthquake has killed over 1,000 people in the country, injuring several others. Homes have been crushed, hospitals are overwhelmed, and rescuers are struggling to reach the remaining survivors. Wednesday's 5.9 magnitude earthquake struck hardest in the east. Here, people live in small settlements. The earthquake triggered mudslides, blocking mountain roads, telephone towers and power lines were downed, making it very hard to get information from the area.
I was awake when the earthquake occurred. It was a devastating blow of nature that fell on us. When I came out of my house, it was all quiet because all the people were buried under their homes.
I have 4 martyrs in my family. I buried them today, and 12 people in the family are wounded. I'm so helpless, I don't have a single penny.
The earthquake was Afghanistan's deadliest in 2 decades. Officials say that the toll could rise, reports suggesting that children may have been killed. An estimated 1,500 other people are reportedly injured. In some districts, entire villages have been leveled. An initial estimate saying over 2,000 homes were destroyed in the region. Here, an average family often has up to 20 members. Survivors say they were struggling to bury their dead. They are digging grave after grave, often by hand. The town of WION, which was close to the epicenter, sustained significant damage. Most of its mud-walled buildings were damaged. The town, with only the most basic roads, was bustling with Taliban soldiers. A helicopter was seen bringing in the relief supplies. About 300 people sat on the ground waiting for supplies. The disaster posing a huge challenge for the Taliban. They are largely isolated in the international community, especially due to their recent policies curbing rights of women. The war-scarred nation also is largely dependent on aid. It saw the bulk of its foreign assistance cut off last August. This was after the Taliban took over the country, and since then, the United Nations has warned of a humanitarian crisis that threatens the entire population. But even before the Taliban took over, Afghanistan's emergency response teams were stretched. Now only a handful of airworthy planes and helicopters are remaining. This means any immediate response to the latest catastrophe is further limited. And countries around the world, including India, have pledged to help it and provide aid. The Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, has said New Delhi is ready to provide all possible disaster relief material. This comes as the United Nations and other agencies are scrambling to get their teams on the ground.
We're talking of what has been seen, probably at least $15 million will be required immediately to respond to multi-sectoral needs. We're concerned about not just non-food items and getting people into shelters and providing medical supplies, but also preventing waterborne diseases.
Afghanistan is often hit by earthquakes, especially in the Hindu Kush mountain region. This is because it is located in a tectonically active region. The country lies near the junction of the Eurasian and Indian tectonic plates, and this makes the country more prone to powerful tremors. In January, several people lost their lives after 2 earthquakes struck a western province. In 2015, more than 380 people were killed in Pakistan and Afghanistan. This was when a 7.5 magnitude earthquake ripped across the 2 countries. However, Afghanistan's deadliest earthquake was in the year 1998. It killed over 5,000 people in the provinces of Takhar and Badakhshan. And with us on the broadcast from Kabul is Sam Moore, the Chief of Communication at UNICEF Afghanistan. Thanks very much for being here with us. If I can begin by asking you to take us through the latest situation on the ground and the challenges. We understand that many of the relief teams are unable to reach some of the areas that are completely cut off.
Well, I'm happy to tell you that UNICEF is on the ground in many of the affected areas, and even as early as yesterday, we had 8 mobile health and nutrition teams tending to the injured, giving them first aid. We were able to get aid trucks on the road early yesterday morning because we had warehouses in Paktika and Khost, and I'm happy to tell you that those aid trucks arrived in many of the key areas affected today, and aid has already been distributed. That aid includes things like tents and tarpaulins because people need shelter first and foremost. So many of them have lost their homes. It also includes things like hygiene kits, towels and soap and sanitary pads. And it includes warm clothes because the temperature has dropped. We've had a lot of rain recently, things like blankets and warm clothes, as well as kitchen supplies. One of the things we've heard from families in the last 24 hours is they've lost their stoves and they need to be able to cook for their families. So UNICEF is on the ground, but of course we need a lot more aid, and you're absolutely right. There are still some areas that have not been reached by relief efforts.
And talking about aid, like you just mentioned, the Taliban have appealed for international assistance. Given the situation in the country ever since the Taliban takeover, how do you assess the preparedness of the country as a result, and what do you make of the Taliban's response so far?
Well, the Taliban reached out to UNICEF and other UN agencies early yesterday morning looking for our support, in particular to get teams down to the areas that were affected by the earthquake so that together we could join forces and assess the needs. That exercise happened yesterday and today, and now we're working together to better understand what relief efforts each agency and the de facto authorities will do next.
If you can tell us more about the difficulties that your teams have encountered so far, given the widespread destruction.
So it's all about logistics and communication. The areas that are affected by the earthquake are very remote, they're very rural, they're very mountainous. And because we've had rain in the last week, we've had these landslides that have made some roads impassable. But there's a lack of communications as well. You know, once we get teams down there, we can't hear from them about what they're finding and what they're doing until they get back into telecoms. Electricity is out as well. The first thing that we need for people is shelter. They need food, they need first aid, they need water. And then we need a longer term plan to rebuild the lives, rebuild homes, rebuild communities and livelihoods.
Sam, thanks very much for helping us better understand the situation on the ground.
Thank you.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.